Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Mary Jane Mack Show on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Nancy, and I'm here with Mary Jane. And today we have a very special guest. But for those of you who don't know about Mary Jane is a holistic intuitive. She has an office here in Issaquah, Washington. However, you don't have to live in the state of Washington to become a client, as she has clients all over the United States and Europe. So you have tuned in on the most perfect day, as we have a superstar guest, and it's very exciting and it's a life-changing show. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Jane to introduce our very special guest. And our show topic today: change your thoughts, change your life. Mary Jane?
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, it is a very special show. We have Dr. Patrick Porter, the developer of Braintap, award-winning author, educator, entrepreneur, and speaker all over the world. I mean, he's on the road probably more than he's home. Dean of the Mind-Based Studies at the Quantum University, a Lifetime Achievement Award 2020 for the International Association of Functional Neurologists, featured in the Wall Street Journal and other business Men's
Health, People Magazine, ABC, NBC, CNN, the list goes on.
Yeah, TV and radio all over. So we could go on forever with his bio, but we want to get right to the nitty gritty of the great Dr. Porter. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Nancy and Mary. That was it was more than you needed to say about me, because I'm out here for everyone else. I just happen to be the benefactor of something that's helping me over the years. So I'm glad to share what I have, and I'm glad the world accepts it and loves it. So
we absolutely love it. Mary Jane and I have been talking about the Braintap for the past several months on our show, and so it's just
since last November.
Yeah, it's a blessing to have you, the actual creator and founder, to explain to all of our listeners exactly what the Braintap is and does.
Okay, well, I can show you right here so that everyone gets a picture of it. So you can see the flashing lights here, and there's lights in the ears. So a lot of people are really puzzled by what are the lights doing there. So first of all, it's a transformational technology. So it's similar to meditation, but unlike meditation, we're not just taking you to a place to get clarity and focus. We think meditation is good for that, and people do use Braintap to deepen their meditation practice. But when we talk about transformation, what we're saying is, like, let's say somebody wakes up in the morning and they just have foggy brain, they don't know how to get started. We have sessions that take you from being tired to being awake. We call these digital coffee. We have sessions that in the afternoon when you're feeling a little run down, because there's some biology involved here, because every day at 2 o'clock our temperature drops 2 degrees. And so the body says, hey, it's time to go to sleep, because these bodies, even though we've progressed as a culture, these bodies are still 200,000 years old. They're still the same as they were in the Serengeti, where we should be laying down next to the zebras and making sure it's a safe place so the lions don't eat us for lunch. But instead, what people are doing is they're getting up and having coffee, tea, or chocolate to stimulate their body. And this is a way to stimulate your nervous system. So think of the Braintap as an energy resource, because we live in an energy economy. So many things are taxing our energy base that if we can keep our brain functioning correctly. But what happens on the downside of that is if people aren't regulating their nervous system or their brain. When I say nervous system or brain, they're interchangeable here. So we have sessions that actually help people sleep. So when you think about the Braintap, when I say transformational tool, even at Quantum University, which you mentioned, we take adult learners. That's who typically is going there, because it's a natural medicine college where we help people, energy medicine practitioners and natural medicine practitioners. And most of them are just going back to school after a career out there doing something for 20, 30 years. And now they say, hey, I want to give back. I want to become a practitioner. And they have to sharpen those mental skills. So we always tell people it takes you from not knowing something to helping you to build into what's called accelerated learning. So part of it is getting the brain into a balanced state where you can learn better, operate better. And the main benefit most people have when they're thinking about Braintap is usually there's 3 main benefits. One is better sleep, because you get a deeper sleep score. The other is stress is reduced. Think of your body as a collector of energy, and sometimes that energy isn't always positive. So we need to be able to disperse that or ground that energy, get it out of your nervous system so it's not bothering you. And then number three, just better clarity. You know, when you're more focused and more clear about what you want to do today, you can live your purpose with a higher energy level and higher intention. And that, what I believe and what's shown me in my life, it becomes almost like you're up leveling your magnetic attraction. So whatever you want in your life that's part of your purpose and your passion for being, you magnify that because your energy shows up instead of being stressed out, you know. And so that's kind of a background. We can go deeper into the science if you want later in the show, but the reality is that you keep your eyes closed. The light works with the optic nerve, it guides you through a cycle of similar to sleep, but during that time it's actually educating or exercising the brain. And we can talk about the three phases of wellness, we call them waves, but this is part of the third wave of wellness. So when you think the first wave, you can't outthink your diet. So you have to eat right. You know, you have to eat healthy foods, you have to drink plenty of water. That's phase one. Phase two is physical exercise. Our bodies are designed to move and breathe and do things. So we have to have both of those. But if you don't have this third wave, the other two kind of crumble, because if you don't have a mindset or if you don't have the energy to do those things, even if you're in a high state of stress, you can't metabolize or digest the foods or the nutrition you're taking because stress causes that to stop. If your mind's not right, you won't create enough of a brain chemical called acetylcholine, which happens when you're relaxed working out. When I was featured in Ironman magazine, we did a whole article about how weightlifting, how when you have the mindset for it and you're relaxed, how your muscles actually build faster. So you can actually use your brain to build more muscle while you're working out if you're more relaxed than if you're stressed out. So this all works together in synergy along with the words that we're using. So we use positive psychology, but if people are out there saying, hey, I don't want to listen to somebody speak, we have over 500 sessions that are music only, that are using different frequencies to balance the brain and harmonize the brain. We can talk about maybe a little bit about how we've worked with dementia and how we work with different things like Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, stress, all the different disorders that we worked with through our clinics out there. We have about 2,400 clinics in the U.S. using it right now.
That is fascinating. Fascinating.
Well, and today the people are more stressed out than ever with what's going on. I mean, you can't get away from stress. And it's like if people aren't doing something to take care of themselves, they're going in the other direction. And so that's why it's important to look at the brain and what's going on in the brain. It's not just the body.
Right. There's something called psychoimmunology, which has been left off the table for some reason since 2020. You know, this means your psychology affects your physiology. So when you think about your physiology, you can either adjust your physiology. We all know people that were in a bad way, maybe depressed, anxious, and they started physically working out, and then they got more positive. That their physiology affect the way that they think. But a lot of people don't realize that if you can think yourself sick. You know, there are a lot of things, they call this psychosomatic illnesses, and this means illnesses of the mind. And it's not because the person wants to do that. It's because our programming, unfortunately, is all negative. I mean, when I tell people, if you're too happy today, just turn on the news for 5 minutes. You'll be in a state of despair and unhappy because they're basically showing us the worst side of humanity. I talked to a newscaster once, and he said, if we could publish all the positive news, we take up a 24-hour news cycle every day, and we still couldn't fit it all in. They have to struggle to get the news because they only tell us about the negative stuff, and it seems like that's even amplified, since 2020. I mean, these bodies, we can stress ourselves out, of course, physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, and all those areas need to be balanced. And just a lot of times it happens because people are trying to control situations they can't. The one thing we can control, and I always say that you're only 6 inches away from personal success because that's the distance between your ears. We need to get that brain working right. So regardless of what happens to you, it no longer has to happen through you. It's going to happen through you, but you got to let it go. I tell people it's like Teflon. Those stressful things happen, but don't let them stick to you. Don't give away the power of happiness to someone else or something else. Take back that control. And it starts with just being present with yourself, realizing that you are an infinite being with potentials that no one's ever shared with you, because most people don't even realize that we're not just this. I remind people, like at Quantum University, we talk about quantum mathematics and quantum physics. We live in a particle reality, but there's this other reality that we live in called the wave reality. That's the gap between the thoughts. So when we go to manifest things, we go to create things in our life, it happens in that wave reality. What shows up is these particles that we call atoms and cells and human beings and planets and things like that. If we're in harmony with all of that, we feel good, our body works well. And so the key here is to get your brain in harmony, get your nervous system in harmony. And the Braintap is one of the tools that over the years we kept stacking on different technologies. So there's 5 core technologies in the Braintap. So we have light therapy, which I showed you with the lights. We have sound therapy, which we have different sound therapies like Noge frequencies, solfeggio. We have binaural beats, isochronic tones. These all work. They all have their own science base, and they all have very good success. And then we layer on top of that beautiful music that trains the brain, as well as words, positive psychology, to get the brain to move. And when all those things happen at one time, the brain moves to a new level of thinking. When Einstein said you can't simultaneously solve a problem on the same level it was created, you got to go to the solution state and then return to the problem with the solution in mind. I feel that that's what meditation, prayer, Braintap, these kind of things, because you can't do it in what we call local time. When you're in the middle of the hurricane, you can't prepare for the hurricane. You needed to do that before the hurricane struck. And so many people, we weren't prepared, we were blindsided. So those that weren't prepared found out, hey, I've got to get my stress under control. And one thing for the listeners, just so you understand, stress is what's causing the sugar problem we have in the world. Sugar, of course, is causing it too, the people eating a lot of sugar. But the stress from one episode is as much as a candy bar. Your liver produces sugar. So if you can lower your stress, those people who are fearful of high blood sugar, which is, of course, really being touted out there, and, of course, wearing a mask and all the other things we had to do, that fear factor is just adding to and exacerbating our stress levels. So we need to figure out how we're going to lower those stress levels so that our body can work in harmony with our environment and what's happening in the world today, because it still is the best time in history of the world to be alive. It's just we have to pick out what we're going to choose to focus our attention on, and we want to focus on being healthy. One thing too, I think, Mary and Nancy, you might know, there was a research paper that I just found. I'm trying to find the actual paper. It was mentioned on a talk that I was being interviewed on, and it showed that they can now measure our photic energy that emits from our heart. So we have, and I know this is true because our science officer actually created clothing that reflects, we all have infrared, that's a light frequency we transmit to people. So when people say, I am light, science has now proved that's true. So we need light in our body. Light is the most underprescribed nutrient. And we actually project it out, like Tom Brady, who's 44 years old and still playing like he's first year out of college, still very fry. He actually licensed this because it reflects our own healing energy back to us. This is true for everyone, not just healers. So every one of us has this corona discharge. Of course, usually in ancient times, they called it an aura, or they could see the energy field around us. This is happening all the time. So if we can realize this healing and tune into this inner light, but what they showed is if you're living a life of gratitude and forgiveness and love, you actually emit 200 times more light than somebody who's in fear, anxiety, or frustration. So my thing is we need to get enough people in the light that basically darkness has no place to hide in our world. And we're going to see some massive changes happening there, but we have to have energy to do that. And of course we're talking about the physical energy, but anytime there's a physical energy, there's also it's spiritual or a non-local. If you're using quantum physics, there's a non-local parity. So there has to be a matching frequency. It doesn't happen on the physical without it also happening in the unseen world or the subconscious part of our reality. So that's what we're trying to tune those two together so that people have this flow through their life instead of feeling like they keep running into roadblocks. like Deepak Chopra said, 97% of what's going to happen tomorrow we know about today. But I don't think he predicted what was going to happen in 2020. So
right.
everyone's getting blindsided. So that's why you need to take the time to relax, prepare for your next day. Just like, could you imagine watching one of your favorite movies and none of the actors or actresses were rehearsing? I mean, they rehearse daily, but people do this in their own life. They never rehearse how they're going to talk to files, how they're going to talk to their family, how they're going to talk to their boss or their employees or their team. It's all about preparing yourself for the best possible you to show up at any moment in time.
I absolutely love that. I love it. And I do that every morning. I Braintap every morning, and I always call in what I want for that day. So it's actually taught me how to take that time in the morning, call in what I want, get my thoughts straight so that I can be the best I can be, but yet I can be the best for my clients as well. So I am with you all the way on that, Dr. Porter. And now is a good time. Mary Jane is offering you a special promotion, and this is a game changer and a life changer. Starting today through September 30th, Mary Jane is offering you $100 off the Braintap headset. And with this special promotion, you will also receive a 30-day free trial to all the meditations on the Braintap. And I have so many favorites, it's just hard to keep track of. So you want to call our office today and secure your Braintap headset and take advantage of this life-changing technology. While you're at it, make sure you book your appointment for your wellness tune-up with Mary Jane to get on the fast track to being the best you can be. And our number is 888-777-4232. So call and get your headset secured and get on the fast track of changing your life today. I am a sole believer, Dr. Porter. I Braintap at least 3 times a day, which you say is excellent. I do my morning wake up. I do one when I get home. I don't have time during the day, but and then at night I always do I love the Enchanted Forest, or I think the Enchanted Forest is my favorite, and the Mountaintop Retreat. But I always do those at night, and I can feel my whole body just go. I don't even feel my body. It's like all the stress has just left, and it's the most amazing feeling I've ever had. So I thank you for that.
Welcome. Thank you.
I was going to mention that, with what I do with the nutrition, and I do light therapy, until I got the Braintap, why I knew when I was at a seminar, the Master Circle, and learned more about the Braintap, I knew immediately that that was really important, because it's the same questions I get all the time. Why do I always have a bad gallbladder? Why do I always have bad relationships? It keeps going round and round. And that's the pattern of their brain, like you say. And this is why this is so important to talk about why that changes it.
Right.
And I like to say, it's the hamster wheel. Let me get me off that wheel.
Yeah. Most people don't know this, but we emit what's called biophotons at the genetic level. And in 2003, when they said, hey, we mapped the human genome, we all got excited. But the reality was they only mapped 1%, because 99% of who you are is changing every 40 seconds. So you're never the same person. And it changes by light. So through our body, of course we have the electrical system, but we also have a light system. And they now know that these tiny emissions of light change who we are. And now what changes that? We know that words change 2,300 different gene expressions. So when you're talking about the gallbladder or whatever, that's why there's something called psychosomatic illness of the mind. So the mind is everywhere. Every cell of your body is thinking. And so when it gets stressed out, your body, I'm saying now, even cellular stress, like if you're one of those people that are very sensitive to EMF, then your cells actually go into what they call the cell danger response, meaning that they start to send a signal to the brain saying, hey, there's something wrong here. I'm getting hit with these waves of energy. I don't know what they are. Now, 20% of the people need to really do something about that, because it compromises even the way they think. Some people, when they drive by power lines, can actually pass out. So you need to look at your environment, right? And then, so all these things are happening, that changes. The people you hang out with, believe it or not, when they say you're the sum total of the 5 closest friends you have, that's because you're sharing DNA, really. Because if you're in their presence, you're sharing light. You're sharing more than words. You're sharing energy. That's why when you're in person, there's something else that happens. There's a magical thing that happens. Although I'm sure during the last year and a half, people have been falling in love through Zoom or through all these. When the nightclubs open back up, or wherever people go to meet people. I've been married for 32 years, so I don't do that. But if there were places, nowadays, where do you go to find that person? Because everything's, when you're locked out, so that causes stress. We need socialization, right? We need human touch. They've done a lot of research with babies, actually, and the babies that don't get touched. In fact, the nursing organizations now, they have to go in there and stroke the babies because they need to feel that connection. So we need that connection. So when you look at your life, think of, when they look at, there's a book out there called Blue Zones, and you can make your own kind of blue zones. What they found out was there's certain things that people who live to be 100 years plus, what is in their environment. And one of their key things, of course, is healthy. All the things you would know intuitively, healthy foods, good water, stress reduction, fun, having fun, socialization, and all these things happening. And so we have to look at our environment, the way we talk, the books we read are important, the people we communicate with. Just having a conversation with you, Mary Jane, you're going to change their genetic makeup just because of the conversation. They're not going to be the same. And the same thing's true with you, Nancy. When you're there, when you're now, you can do it here because we're sharing information here and energy, but when they're present with you, your intention as a healer, your intention being there, being present for them, they feel that on a subconscious level, even if they consciously don't realize it. And people change because they're in your presence. Even a lot of times, it's not even what you say, it's just being there for them and holding that energy. And now they're proving that to be true. It used to be metaphysical, nobody knew what to think or how that was all happening. Now they're showing, because we have the science. Like, I was just at the Chopra Center here in Orlando, and they even use something called the bio well, which in the past, that's reading your aura. They can actually go to distance.
Yeah.
And now that's being, the university that we work with here, they have a bio well now. So it's like 10 years ago, that would have never happened. But now they understand energy. Energy is where it's at right now. And how do we upgrade our energy levels, and how do we keep it positive? And how do we regulate brain function? Those are all key things for health.
Well, exactly. Energy is what I do, but being intuitive, being able to tap into somebody's energy no matter where they are, it's one thing that I explain to people. Energy is infinite. It's forever. I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. When Abed Goswami, who wrote the book Quantum Doctors, and he's already speaking at Quantum University. He's the one who first gave me, he said, consciousness is the reality underneath all things. So that consciousness, we're all connected there. Yeah. So some people have discretionary access to that, like you, Mary Jane. Some people don't. And so they have to, but we're all connected. It's like knowing that you have the story of Acres of Diamonds, and the guy who traveled all over the world trying to find diamond mines. And when they went to bury him in his backyard, they found 3 feet beneath the soil was the world's largest diamond mine. And he'd never looked in his backyard. So that's kind of we all have this hidden treasure in ourselves that we haven't tapped into yet.
Exactly. So, yeah. It was like I didn't know I had that gift till 2000, and it was developed. It wasn't like, for me, like magic. It was there. So yeah, it's exciting. And I tell people all the time, they have that ability to do the same thing in different ways or that way. They just haven't even thought of it before.
All right, it's time for us to take a short break. You are listening to the Mary Jane Mack Show on Transformation Talk Radio. We'll catch you on the other side.
All right, all clear.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Dr. Porter, I'm just getting chills and chills.
Did you know that each Enneagram type has a different worldview, different patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving? They also have essential qualities that are unique to their type. Understanding this helps us develop more tolerance, respect, and appreciation for ourselves and others. Renee Siegel works with individuals, couples, families, and groups using the Enneagram to build better relationships as a tool in addiction recovery. Visit yourpurepotential.com for more info.
Are you feeling the complexity of life? Do you feel that urge to step into something greater? Tune in to Nailed It Radio. Find your simplicity within your complexity with me, life coach Carrie Nail. Tune in each month on transformationtalkradio.com to discover what it means to use your full power to be the best version of yourself. Imagine stepping into the energy of saying yes to yourself and knowing you nailed it. For more information about me, visit carrienail.com.
Disease, one of the most dreaded words in our vocabulary. Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. Did you know traditionally we have viewed disease as a degenerative process? Disease is better understood when we view it as dis-ease in the human body. Dis-ease means without ease. Health is not merely the absence of disease, it's when every part of the body works together effortlessly, relaxed and at ease. It's that relaxed state that lets energy flow in waves through and around the entire body. Every organ has an electrical charge, and when overcharged or undercharged, dis-ease occurs. And it is an effort to go through our day. We are able to determine the exact dis-ease of the body and design a specific solution to correct the nutritional imbalance. Contact us at 888-777-4232. That's 888-777-4232. And visit us at maryjanemack.com.
Stuck in a roundabout of dysfunction? Stop circling around difficult issues and find out what's been holding you back. Learn how to speak your truth to power with host Dr. Kathy Aubert. Create real change with smart tools and smart strategies. No frills, no fluff, just life-changing conversations to help get you where you want to be. Extend your reach and become an agent for real change with Kathy Aubert. For more information on Kathy and her work, please visit drkathyaubert.com. That's drkathyaubert.com.
Are you ready to branch out? Take a leap of faith. Tune in to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills on transformationtalkradio.com to equip, empower, and enlighten yourself. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. So get fearlessly ready and get powerfully rooted in your yes to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Visit getrootedradio.com.
So how long are you going to be in Orlando?
We'll be here till Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
Y'all ready to come back in?
You're going to be at Master Circle, aren't you?
Yes, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Nancy, all set?
I'm all set.
All right. Okay, here we go.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Mary Jane Mack Show on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Nancy. We're here with Mary Jane and Dr. Patrick Porter, founder and creator of the Braintap. And I just want to mention one more time, Mary Jane is offering a special promotion. Today through September 30th, you are able to get $100 off the Braintap headset, along with a 30-day free trial to all the self-guided meditations, the music, everything. This is a life-changing tool. So call our office today and secure your headset. It's an amazing piece of technology, and the benefits that you get from this there are no words. It's phenomenal. So don't forget, call our office today, secure your headset, get that $100 off, and get on the fast track to changing your life and changing your thoughts, which change your life. The number is 888-777-4232. And we have a very special caller, Dr. Pat. Are you there?
Hey there. Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good. Hey, Dr. Porter, it's so great to meet you. Powerful, powerful show. And one that I want to just address personally. So this year has been tough on everybody. And I want to thank Mary Jane Mack and you, Dr. Porter, because those two, that combination of Braintap and Mary Jane Mack did some incredible things for me personally for this year and for our business and for Transformation Network and Transformation Talk Radio. And it's so powerful that this show, I will be getting 2 brain taps, one of them for one of my leads, Jessica, and another one for the office. Why? So everything you said is true. But let me give you a couple of examples for people listening. You know, when you go through life, sometimes you don't know what's going to come your way. But if you had something that you could get your day started, or if you had something that would help you not go for that drink or that drug, and I work with women in recovery, and Braintap, for me, did something incredible. So I'm going to give you one testimonial, but it's one of many. I got 2 double knee replacements in the middle of COVID. I expanded the network and our technology. That would not have happened as easily and as successfully. I am a professional table tennis player, and within 3 months, I'm playing. But here's the miracle, Dr. Porter. What was it about Braintap that helped me? Why was it when I went to physical therapy for my knee that I could bend my knee at 140 degrees after 3 weeks? You see, it's great to talk about the science, and I love to talk about being in the light. But I also want folks to know that there is an end game with what you 3 are talking about. And the end game is how to create an amazing life. How do you get past the negativity of your day? Or how do you get past the diagnosis? Or how do you get past somebody saying to you, you can't? Or how do you get to the point where you know you can? And it doesn't matter what program you use in Braintap. There's something that happened to Jessica yesterday. And you can't describe it, Dr. Porter. You do a great job. But for me, the results are what say what is going on. And I want to leave everybody with this, because I couldn't do this without Mary Jane Mack. So I want to be very clear about that. But I will tell you this. How is it you sit down and you do one of the Braintap programs, one of the meditations, and it has to do about exercise. And you stop that program and you go about your day. And then all of a sudden you're sitting down with your best friend and you just look at her and you say, I got to get up and go use my fit gym. See, this is the point I want to drive home to people. You know, this is a tool that will move you to a place in your life, at least from my perspective, help you expand your business, help you create a better platform of health for yourself. But it will also change so that the light could come through. And I wanted to thank you 3 for this, because I know myself, Linda, Jessica, the business, the expansion of Transformation Network, and everybody here is benefiting to the fact that I just don't react to things anymore. So what is the difference? Mary Jane Mack and you, Dr. Porter. So I want to thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great.
So that's a good point, Dr. Porter. It would be good to talk about who needs a brain tap. You know, people, I mean, I know everybody needs a brain tap, but it's like people say, well, what do I need that? It's just that it's just everybody needs it, but why do they need it?
Well, the main thing I think they need it for is that no one is immune to stress. I love it when I'm being interviewed on, traditional radio or TV, and they go, "Do you use it?" And I'm like, I look at them like, "Are you crazy? I've been using it since 1986. Why wouldn't I use it every day?" I do it at least twice a day, if not 3 times a day. At events, sometimes we do it 4 times a day because it's stressful when you're dealing with crowds of people all the time. But I think that the main reason they'll do it is that we all have those experiences that things aren't always going to work out right. When Buddha said all unhappiness stems from unfavorable comparisons, that's because if we let the subconscious run the show, there's a saying, the subconscious is a great servant, but a very bad master. So what that means is that if you're not always maintaining your mind, someone else or something else will. And if that's not evident in the last year and a half, nothing is, because it's flipping people's belief systems. It's what's happening out there in the world. And people need to understand that the real healing happens within you. Not even a pill. There is no pill without a skill. So you need both. And so in this case, Mary Jane, you're the pill, right? So then they need the skill to do all those things, because we can't replace what everyone does. But what happens is once the brain, the central processing computer, that's only the hardware. But the heart that controls the show. So once our heart and our brain are coherent, they call it, then now transformation happens. And my belief, this is just my belief, and we haven't been able, one of the things when sitting down with Deepak Chopra we talked about was how could we measure consciousness? Nobody's been able to do this, right? So we're trying to figure that, but the reality is that I believe that we get, every time we go through these different brainwave cycles and we really tune into our true purpose, our true self, if you will, and really engage with that energy, we get an upgrade. We get to know, and even the ancient rishis would say, the reason we were just published with a Kriya Yoga meditation that we did with Bhopal, India, AIMS Institute, where we showed how breathing techniques can increase alpha. And because they already talked about this. So when you're relaxed and you're in the right brain state and you're breathing, you get more pranic energy. So when you're breathing, it's not just about oxygen. There's actually intelligence in the air that you're breathing. The next moment of your life exists in your next breath. So that's why we have to breathe through things. So I think as we open up and we start to receive more energy, that energy is instructing us to make better decisions. We treat people better when we have energy. We have more compassion. We have more forgiveness. The more stressed out we are, the more worried we are. And she was talking about addictions. Addictions are a phobic reaction to social situations. And what I mean by that is if you're addicted, let's say you're addicted to cigarettes or alcohol, anytime you get your stress level builds up, when you get to a certain threshold, the only solution is your addiction. So you have this, you want to get out of this uncomfortable feeling, I'm going to go have a drink. I'm going to go smoke marijuana. Or I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. Whatever the addiction is, I'm going to go watch pornography. Whatever it is that's triggering them, it's because their brain is imbalanced at that time. When the brain's balanced, there's a really good book that I always recommend people, especially for addiction. It's called Finding Your Perfect High. And John Marshall, before I wrote the programs for the DUIs for the state of Arizona, I really read that book and studied it and some other things, because really people, they're not getting high or they're not doing all these things to get out of balance. They're doing them to think they can get in balance. We have a natural desire as humans, really, unless something really has happened to us wrong. We want to be good. We want to be helping out our civilization. Really, we want to be good humans, if you will. The problem is that we're not humans. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So it gets confusing because we start thinking we're these bodies, and we're energy. So I think when you phase out, let's say, just for lack of a better word, when you tune in, like Ram Dass used to say, tune out, tune in, turn on. We're just not using drugs to do it. We don't need, you have all the receptor sites in your own brain. Like even just to get, there's something called DMT that's really big in the news right now. It's a pill, or they get it from all sorts of different sources, but people have these spiritual experiences. The reason they have them is because the brain has receptors for them. People can get those same experiences without doing the drug. That's what people do when they have these awakenings. So when you're in the right space, you get to see what others don't see because you're in a space that others aren't in. And that's where you have to plan and produce the results in your life, first in the inner space, and then it manifests out here in the outer space, in this physical world. And we have to, I always tell people that what we do is the exact opposite of Zen Buddhism, just as a joke. It's not exactly true. But in Zen Buddhism, they say, cease expecting and you have all things. I always say with Braintap, expect everything and be happy of something.
Yeah, and with Braintap, the big thing that I want people to know about is how when your brain is healthy, how you heal better. It's like macular degeneration, depression, all those symptoms, all those kids with autism, like even in my granddaughter, how your brain rebuilds the cells and you change. And this technology is used by all the top neurologists in the country. I mean, let alone everyone else. I mean, but it's about how it actually heals the body when you use the Braintap.
When you think about our brains, when we're born, we're totally connected. Unless something happened at birth, the brain is wired. And as we get older, it unwires. People think they're learning and it wires up. It actually unwires. So what we have to do, that's why you have to do other things, like we have to read books and do different things, adventure, don't get stuck in the same rut. What we found was, like in our dementia study we did, we took women 55, 65 years old. We had them listen 3 times a day for 6 weeks. These were all women that were diagnosed with clinical dementia. They did the scoring. We did the online scoring through Cambridge Sciences. They all scored in the dementia scale. After 6 weeks of brain tapping, that was it. They didn't do anything else. They did the morning, the afternoon, the evening. They did the brain fitness series, if people are wondering. But in the morning, they did our AM sessions, which wakes up the brain. We call digital coffee. They did our sleeping sessions that we call quaaludes, digital quaaludes. They put you to sleep. So these things, they wake you up, they reboot you. But what we found was the left hemisphere, as people get better looking and more intelligent with age, sometimes the brain doesn't keep up. So the left hemisphere actually loses voltage. After 6 weeks, because we measured it with something called the WABI, we can measure brain function. At the end of 6 weeks, the brain matched, which means now the brain is coherent. The left hemisphere and right hemisphere are the same. They took the dementia test. They no longer scored that they were on the dementia scale. They went back to their doctor. Their doctor said, wow, if you came here, 6 weeks ago like this, I would have never diagnosed you. But the problem with our medical system is they don't believe that dementia or Alzheimer's can be healed. So they said, you have to keep the diagnosis, even though you don't have any of the symptoms. And then when we checked out their neuroplasticity, which is how much electrical activity is happening in the brain, they used to think you had a fixed amount, like a computer. You buy a computer, it has this kind of processing power. We've showed even up to 100 years old, you can change the brain. You can improve brain function. In the study, we had a 49% neurological change, which means their brain was operating at 49% better efficiency than before the 6 weeks. And the most incredible part of the study that really, we're in a bigger study now with Seminole College down here in Florida, which there's something called reorganization score. We all know people that when they get angry in the morning, they're still angry the next day or even a week later because they're not able to get rid of that anger. We call that reorganization because an anger or a upset event, like that's almost like a PTSD trigger, it triggers a whole neurological set of activities. Now, if you don't learn how to get rid of that, it hijacks your happiness. It hijacks your life. So we taught them how to change that, a 58% reorganizational score improvement, which meant if they had something traumatic happen to them, it could be just as traumatic as getting a bad text or a negative email or tuning into the news. Some people just can't reorganize. So part of it is, the people that are the healthiest, nobody can avoid stress, right? It's going to happen to every one of us. But how do you reorganize after that stressful event? Do you take the time to recharge and reboot, or do you just try to push through it? And the pushing through it is probably the worst thing you can do to your biological system, because what happens is you'll burn out your adrenals. Our neurohormonal system is like our backup generator. It's only supposed to be there in case of emergencies. And that used to only happen, like during caveman days, it would only happen maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Now with our digital technology, it can happen 4 or 5 times before breakfast. So we really have to look at how our lifestyle is being changed. That's part of the equation. So I always believe that technology caused the problem. We can use technology like Braintap to help us handle that problem, because technology is not going away. Nobody's going to get rid of their smartphones tomorrow. It's going to be, we're going to have to learn a way to use those for health.
Another thing that I've seen quite a bit of is my clients haven't had COVID, but other people that had COVID have called me, and a lot of them with brain fog, and one with pretty good brain injury. She's changed her speech, and she's been using the Braintap for a bit now. But what do you think about that?
Well, definitely, we're bringing light into the brain. Your eyes are not just attached to your brain. When somebody says to you, "Wow, you've got beautiful eyes," they're really saying you've got beautiful brain, because they're looking at brain matter. So we're going to get light in through something called photobiomodulation. That light goes in and it's repairing. There's something called ATP at the cellular level. Think of it like gasoline for an automobile. If we don't have ATP, our body can't heal. So when the brain gets damaged, it's hard to get nutrients in. They call it the blood-brain barrier. It's hard to get toxins out, or the waste matter that happened through the brain injury. That's called the glial lymphomic system. And in 2016, they finally realized that we have one of those. The medical community finally confessed. If you look at the lymphatic system, before that, it stopped here at the neck. Well, anywhere there's a blood vessel, there's a lymphatic vessel, but it's locked so that only releases during deep level 4 sleep. So the biggest thing we're going to do to heal that brain is get her sleeping through the night, because you can only get so much toxins out at a time. So that's why you got to have that deep level 4 sleep, they call it. And you can do those sleep scores with your digital devices if you wanted. We don't recommend having your phone in your bedroom, because we did a study, which is kind of we did a study where we put person's phone outside of the room. We were measuring them with the something called the neuroinfinity, which would register cortical response or limbic response. That's our most inner brain, let's say. And every time their phone buzzed, even though we couldn't hear it in the room, it was outside the room, their brain had a reaction, which meant there was a quantum entanglement between the person and their phone. It's scary stuff. And so if you sleep with that in your room and you don't have it on, no notifications, turn it off, you're being disrupted all night long while you sleep. That's one of the best things somebody can do, is just, if you have it in your room, put it on airplane mode if you need to have it for your alarm or whatever. But I don't recommend alarms either. I recommend putting some beautiful music on that you wake up to, not an alarm that blares and disrupts your nervous system. Those are all things that you need to think about. How do you wake up in the morning? What's the first thing you do in the morning? And it should be get out of bed, of course, use the restroom if you need to, and then get a large glass of water with some salt, do your Braintap session. Now you've hydrated your brain. This is a fact most people don't know. Your brain can shrink up to 3/4 of an inch at night while you sleep. It's a hydro engine. So we always recommend 2 hours before sleep, you have 16 ounces of water. That's so you can eliminate before you go to sleep. And then in the morning, first thing you wake up, 16 ounces of water. And if you can do minerals at night, and you can do like Celtic salts in the morning, that's really good for the body.
What about kids? For the Braintap for kids? I mean,
yeah, what's interesting is we just, on social media, if somebody types in hashtag Braintap, they'll see baby after baby. We have one video that's so funny, it's been watched thousands of times, because every time the mother puts the Braintap on the child, she stops crying. When she takes it off, it cries. It's so funny, because they love, our brains at any age love patterns. And so, for instance, when you mentioned earlier about autism, we speak in the alpha brainwave region. So when you think of alpha, that's a brainwave state between being awake and asleep. There's 2 brainwaves called alpha and theta, and they can break them down any further, but if you don't have a lot of alpha, you won't be able to speak. And invariably, we see with the autistic community, when we measure their brains, they don't have alpha. So that's number one. Number two, for people to think, if you have a hyperactive kid, we usually find that they have low beta, which is our reactionary kind of thing, but they have high alpha, so they're disassociated and they're not focusing. If they're hyperactive with HD with hyperactive activity and disassociated, they usually have matching beta and alpha. Usually the brainwaves, you need about 45% beta and about 30% alpha, and that allows you to mitigate. The brain doesn't work like a digital technology, it works like an analog, which means we flow between these different states all day long. So usually most children are able to do that because they have their brains really resilient. but if they've had too many toxins or they've had a traumatic experience, it could be with a family member or just something happened to them, that disrupts the natural flow of the brain chemistry, because every time you go through you flow back and forth between these brain states, you're actually regulating 54 different neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters are what help it to feel good, to downregulate the stress hormones, things of that nature. So if with children especially, just like adults, but it can be even worse, is that's when our brain's developing. So if our brain starts to form bad habits, then those bad habits carry on through the rest of their life. So it's really important as they get younger, like what happened with me with my father, who taught us to meditate and use what they call GSR machines. Of course, when I was younger, there was no Braintap or anything because I invented it in the 80s. But what we did was we used sound. Sound is very powerful alone. So if somebody just even has the app, they can start getting benefit, because sound, our ears, for instance, as a normal everyday person, you're listening to 25,000 different pieces of information every second. But our brain tunes out everything that's not important. So with a child, if they're not taught, if their brain isn't able to regulate all that information, they go into overwhelm and they start to stim, right? They have too much energy. They don't know what to do that. So what the Braintap does, it starts to help them to organize those brain frequencies, because it's an unregulated brain simply means they wake up in the morning and just whatever happens, happens. That's why it's so in India, for instance, we have a school that we support there called the Creative School. It's a great school. I wish it was here for my grandkids. The whole school is grounded. Of course, in India, they don't wear shoes, so they're walking around barefoot. They don't have any of the inflammation from any of the outside sources. It's open air classrooms. They have live plants in every room. In the back of every room, there's a Braintap. So when the kid in that class, and they're a K through 12. So if you're in that class and you start to feel stressed, you can go back and self-select any Braintap session you want. And if you go to my social media, you'll see some of the times I've been there to do the talks. They all know me there, when I come in, because they've heard me, and then I give a little lecture. But they call it brain prep. So every morning they do it as a group, because you can listen to the single voice versions of Braintap in an open air because we have isochronic tones. But then if they need to, a lot of them have it at home, but they can do the kids that need special needs. They know that before they start their school day, they do Braintap to get their brain in the best learning position. And that's where we have that beta alpha match. And now we can learn better and faster. So kids, that's where I started, and that's why I'm still doing this. It helped me as I was held back in second grade and told I wasn't very smart, that I was an artist. I didn't care about school. But as soon as I realized that I could turn off the artist for a little bit, become the mathematician, let's say, I became an honor roll student because I started visualizing myself doing those things and became better at sports. Whatever you want to do, that's why I was saying at the beginning of the show, you're only 6 inches away. If we can find out where the limited belief is, and you don't need to know all the reasons why. That's why you'd go to Mary Jane. She might tell you what the reasons why are. But when you're doing the processing, you just need to experience. There's techniques in there, is what I'm trying to say. It's not just word salad. I'm actually training the brain to think differently. Unfortunately, most people think a problem is permanent. There is no permanent problem. There's no permanent solution. It's all about flow states and being able to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And that's not just a slogan for the Marines. That's for everybody in their life. I like to quote the Marines because my great-great-grandfather started the Marines. So I'm always...
Number 5.
Yep. So when you think about it, we all have to adapt and improvise.
We have 2 minutes left. Mary Jane, we have 2 minutes.
We've been talking about all these other things, but quickly, the benefits of kids in sports or adults, those people who are doing good but want to be better.
Yeah, I just met this morning with the Seminole College. They were the national champions 2 years in a row. They used Braintap. We've been doing an ongoing study. The girls at Northeastern Hockey up in the Boston area, we helped them become runners-up last year in the national championship to show them how stress affects it. The thing is that almost every professional athlete knows that they need to work on their mindset. because physically they're all about equal. But who has the better mindset? That's the person who's going to win. So think in terms of your biggest muscle isn't on your body, it's between your ears. If you can get that, if you can get your mental muscle going, you're going to be far superior, because that's the part that basically feels like it lets you down from time to time, because physically you do all the training, everything you need to do, but it's really about us not planning and preparing. Nobody's going to win 100% of the time, but you want to be able to handle it with grace under pressure.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, this has been a great show. Nancy, you might want to mention that again, but it's been a great show. It's been a pleasure to have you, and sure hope maybe we could have you back another time. It's
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Porter. Again, Mary Jane's offering that special promotion. Give our office a call at 888-777-4232. I'd like to thank everybody who's been listening, but especially the wonderful Dr. Patrick Porter. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next month on the Mary Jane Mack Show on Transformation Talk Radio.
All clear, kids.